Greetings folks, welcome back. In this short video we're going to talk about some of the concepts related to supply, some of the factors that will shift an entire supply curve as opposed to just contribute to a movement along a fixed supply curve. So let's start with just a brief review, some of the basic concepts of supply. We talked about quantity supplied. That's defined as the number of units that producers are willing and able to sell at a given price. And then we talked about the law of supply, which is this idea that there's a positive relationship between price and the quantity supplied. And that's shown on the supply curve that we'll draw in a moment. But the idea of the law of supply is that as price rises, quantity supplied, in other words, the number of units that producers are going to sell, increases as well. So remember, there were a number of determinants of supply. These are the things that would shift the entire curve. We talked about the number of sellers. We talked about input prices, technology, and then finally expectations about the future. So first we're just going to review how you might draw a supply curve. You see on the x-axis is quantity, and on the y-axis is price. So now we can actually draw in a simple supply curve. There you go. See, just an upward sloping curve. You want to label it with an S. Again, the idea is that if you have a low price, you have a low quantity supplied. If you have a higher price, you have a larger quantity supplied. Now we can think about some of the factors that will shift the supply curve. One could be an increase in sellers. So the question is, in which direction is this going to shift the supply curve? Is it going to decrease the supply and move the supply curve over here? Or is it going to increase supply? Well, something like an increase in the number of sellers will shift the supply curve out this way. You can put a little arrow here to show the increase in supply. What this means is that at all prices, the quantity supplied has increased. So here's a price here. On the original supply curve, the quantity supplied was down here. On the new supply curve, it's out here. But it's not just that price, it's every price where there's an increase in the quantity supplied. Another factor that might shift an entire supply curve is a change in the price of an input. When you think about pizza, one of the key inputs is cheese. So think about what happens to the supply of pizza when the price of cheese goes up. Is that something that's going to increase the supply, move it out here? Or is it going to decrease the supply of pizza? Well, remember, we talked about how if there's an input price and that increases, that's going to reduce the supply of pizza. So it's going to move the curve back. In other words, at all prices, the quantity supplied is lower now. So at a low price, when the price of cheese was lower, the quantity supplied was out here. Now, at that same price, because the price of cheese has gone up, the quantity supplied will be here. Again, it shifted the entire supply curve. Another factor that could shift a supply curve would be a hotter pizza oven. And you might wonder which of the factors that fall under. Well, you could think of that in terms of the technology that's used to make a pizza. So if you have a hotter pizza oven, it might mean that you could cook the pizzas faster. So that's a improved technology. So what's that going to do to the supply of pizza? Is it going to move it in? Is it going to decrease the supply, or is it going to increase the supply? Well, a better technology, like a hotter pizza oven, is one of those factors that will shift the supply curve outward here. Here's a new supply curve, and it's shifted it outwards. So really that was all we wanted to talk about here. Just a couple things to keep in mind when you're thinking about the concept of supply. If you have a change in the price of the good that you're studying, that's simply going to lead to a change in quantity supplied or of movement along a fixed supply curve. The other factors we looked at, things like changes in the number of sellers, changes in input prices, changes in technology, those will shift the entire supply curve. So that's it for this short lecture, and we'll see you next time.